Thanks for joining us today on the Statler Financial Radio Show. I am Jen Rezac, happy to be here with Philip Statler. And with everything that's been going on, we know a lot of you have questions about the market, how your portfolio's doing, how your money's performing. Today, you're going to hear a lot about Philip's financial x-ray process and how that could help you get some answers. We'll probably answer some of your questions on the show today, but you can always reach out to 863-285-3815. Again, that's 863-285-3815 to take advantage of the financial x-ray report. You can also check us out online at statlerfinancial.com. And with that, Philip, I hope all is well with you. You know, we've all been caught off guard at some point. It's not a good feeling. You freeze up.
That's for sure.
Right? You just freeze up like a deer in the headlights. Everything hits you all at once, and you just feel paralyzed. And this has happened to me so many times where I don't know what to say, I don't know what to do. And I've been thinking about that, Philip, with everything that's been happening. People do get a little bit frozen, I think. How does this analysis paralysis impact people who need to make decisions about their retirement?
Well, it can be very dangerous, Jen. You know, people that get in that perspective of they're afraid to make a decision can be dangerous, right? I mean, especially if they're getting closer and closer to retirement and they're not taking some type of action to prepare. And then they do take some steps, but they don't follow through to finish the process. And so when that happens, you know, you've spent time and energy trying to accomplish something, but yet because you didn't follow through, you're no better off than when you started, and you've wasted really all that time and effort to try to move forward.
Yeah, it really is a frustrating situation. And here's the other thing, Philip, when there's so many things that are going on and people feel so overwhelmed, I think some people put off some of the planning and some of the things they need to do because they don't know what the process is like or how hard it might be, what the questions will be like. Can you talk a little bit about your office and what people can expect when they start to work with you and your team?
Sure, Jen. You know, it's a kind of a relaxed setting. You know, you're going to come into the office, and most days, Jen, they're going to be greeted by our four-legged greeter. You know, you know, Charlie Sue is my golden doodle, and she comes to work with me almost every day. She does get a couple of days off here and there, but generally she's going to be here on the days that I'm seeing clients. And so she'll be here to greet you at the door. And some people, they're not really fond of dogs, and that's okay. We will, if you're not, we'll take her and throw her in the back room, and she's okay there too. But she loves people. I mean, that's just her thing. You know, a lot of times you'll come in, we'll have a good selection of coffee and teas that you're welcome to. A great time just to sit and kind of relax a little bit before we get together. And then once we do kind of sit down in our conference room, then I'm going to find out what's important to you. What's really keeping you up at night? What are the things that are bothering you? And what can I do? How might I be able to fit in and to help you overcome some of these things that are really bothering people? And so that's really the initial part of our process, is that, you know, where are we at? What do you want to accomplish? And then to me, and the big part of our financial x-ray, Jen, is where are you at right now? Do you really know? And so often when I sit down with people, they don't really have a clue as to what they're invested in. What does that look like? You know, do they have a lot of risk, or do they have a lot of safety? So often folks don't know what they don't know until they go through our process. And then they get really kind of concerned about making sure that they're in the right spot. So, you know, the question really becomes, do you know how much risk is in your portfolio? Because that's why I designed the financial x-ray, is to be able to analyze your portfolio to make sure that it lines up with your risk tolerance. So give me a call and let's go through our risk analysis and our financial x-ray of your current portfolio. To do that, all you have to do is give us a call at 863-285-3815. That's 285-3815 to schedule your no obligation financial x-ray to really determine how much risk is in your portfolio. That's 863-285-3815.
Talking today with Philip Statler. He is with Statler Financial Services. I'm Jen Rezac alongside. StatlerFinancial.com is the website if you'd like to learn a little bit more. They're also really active on Facebook. So if you're on there, just do a search for Statler Financial Services. They're always posting videos and news updates. And Philip, let's talk a little bit about the folks who are in there helping you. We know that you have your four-legged greeter there in your office, but talk a little bit about how you have set yourself up and a little bit about your approach as far as how you work with clients.
So when you come into our office, you're going to meet, let's just go through the kind of staffing. I've got Karen is usually the receptionist. She's at the front, will greet you along with Charlie Sue. Roxanne is my assistant, and she does a lot of our paperwork. Folks that need distributions, she's the person that they talk to get that taken care of. She's the paperwork person. She's going to take care of most of the paperwork that needs to be done as clients come into our office. Then we have Dasha. Dasha is, she does some tax work, but she's also the person that puts together our financial reviews. She helps me put together our financial plans, does a lot of the risk, the financial x-ray part. She'll help put that information into our system to help design and develop what your portfolio risk number really looks like. So that's kind of the staff we have right now. And it's ebb and flow, right? You just, with all that's going on right now, it's, it can be more and less as we move forward.
Talk a little bit about your financial x-ray report here as well, Philip, as we talk about the client experience, what people need to know about what this is like. Explain your financial x-ray report, what it does, and what it means for people who need some answers for their retirement.
So here's the gist of it. I really, when I developed this, I found that when I would meet with people, they really, number one, didn't know how much risk was in their current portfolio. Mm-hmm. Number two, they didn't know what their risk tolerance was. They didn't understand what that meant. Yeah, they had gone through, with their advisor, maybe a questionnaire or their financial or their 401k provider, they had a blanket questionnaire, and they'd answer those questions. At the end, it would say, you're moderately conservative or you're aggressive growth, but they didn't really know in numeric fashion what that meant. And so we went out and looked and found some providers that could quantify what risks look like in your portfolio. And so we've developed that along with our process to determine, what your risk number is on the scale of 0 to 100. And we apply that same process to your current portfolio. And it gives us the risk number of your current portfolio. And we look at those two numbers to see, are they congruent? Do they line up? Or is there a disconnect there? Is there, your portfolio is a 20 and you're a 40? Well, that means you don't have enough risk in your current portfolio. 9 times out of 10, it's the other way around though, Jen. We find that somebody's a 20 or 25 and their portfolio is a 50, 60, or 70.
Oh, wow.
And so they've got too much risk in their portfolio. So that's one aspect of our financial x-ray. The second part of the financial x-ray is, how much are we paying in fees and expenses? And I find that most folks that I sit down with, they don't have any idea of what they're paying in fees and expenses within their portfolio or their financial products, whatever they have. That to me is problematic because every expense you're paying is taken away from your earnings. And so you want to make sure that what you're paying is lining up with what you expect, number one. And then number two, how much is that affecting your returns in your current portfolio? I've gone way out there in developing this financial x-ray. And I did it because I just believe that people typically don't know what their risk number is. Mm-hmm. And it's important that they do. I mean, everything is based on that. When you're not working and you're retired, risk is very important. Now, when you're working, it's a different story, Jen, because you can take on a lot more risk when you are working every day, your paycheck's coming in. Hey, risk is set it, forget it. And, 20 years down the road and getting ready to retire, hopefully you've got a big nest egg there. But when you're getting ready to retire, risk plays such a vital role. And so many people don't know what that number is for them. And that's why we developed our financial X-ray. Give me a call and let's walk through that process. I mean, we've seen a lot of volatility this year. So let's take an opportunity now to determine how much risk you have in your portfolio and make sure it lines up with your risk number. Give me a call at 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. One of the things I know is that in life, we need to be congruent, and your portfolio needs to be congruent with your risk tolerance. Give me a call and let's walk through that process together. 863-285-3815.
Talking today with Philip Statler. He is with Statler Financial Services, and I am Jen Rezac alongside that number again, 863-285-3815. StatlerFinancial.com is the website if you'd like to learn a little bit more, and they're also active on social media if you just search for Statler Financial Services on Facebook. Retirement, is a new phase of life, and anything new can make us nervous. It happens. Change is hard. But after the break, we're going to talk about how you can change up your routine so you can truly get ready for retirement. Thanks for joining us today. This is the Statler Financial Radio Show, and we'll be back.
What changes the world, even our daily lives, doesn't have to change your future. When life feels uncertain, where do you turn? A trusted voice, a measured response in the face of chaos, offering you a steady hand and a plan designed to account for even our darkest days. Imagine the difference that might make for your confidence. Calm in a sea of turmoil. Contact Statler Financial now for a virtual visit from the safety and comfort of your own home. Reach us at 863-285-3815 to set up your virtual visit. That's 863-285-3815. When the world changes, we remain steady, ready to serve you. It's what we do. Statler Financial, here for you when you need us most. 863-285-3815. Investment advisory services offered through Statler Financial Inc. No investment strategy can guarantee a profit or protect against loss in periods of declining values.
Thanks for joining us today on the Statler Financial Radio Show. I am Jen Rezac, happy to be here alongside Philip Statler. He is the inaugural Highlander Award winner for Financial Representative of the Year. He's president and CEO of Statler Financial Services. StatlerFinancial.com is the website if you'd like to learn a little bit more. A lot of us are creatures of habit. We have our usual order at our favorite restaurant. We take our coffee a certain way. I don't know. Is that you, Philip? Do you like to try new things whenever you go to a restaurant, or do you have your standard, your usual, don't mess with it?
I have a couple standards depending upon the restaurant I go to.
Sure.
If I'm paying for it, I want to make sure I know what I'm getting. Now, if I'm at an event or something and they've got something new and, hey, you want to try this? I'm willing to try new stuff. I'd rather try it on somebody else's dime.
There you go. That makes perfect sense. And I'm kind of the same way. I like to try new things, but man, when it comes to stuff like how I take my coffee, don't mess with it. Like, I know what I like. I don't need to mess with that.
Yeah. So. Hey, coffee, don't mess with that, man. It is what it is. And
exactly.
Don't do that.
Well, and it's easy to be that way with a lot of things. We don't always like to switch banks or accountants or doctors because you get used to working with someone. You get used to how things are done. I recently had to see a new dental hygienist, and Man, it was just not what I was used to. She didn't even ask me what flavor tooth polish that I wanted, and she just made an assumption and she guessed wrong. So, those kinds of things are frustrating.
Black mark, right?
Oh, yeah. No, don't like that. But, when we're thinking about what we do with our money, and as we get closer to retirement, we might think about changing things up. We may have been working with someone for a long time, Philip, helping us with growing our money and putting more money away. But talk about why we might want to break out of that routine when it comes to planning for retirement.
Jen, we talk about that quite a bit on the show, and that there's two segments. Well, there's more than two segments in your life, but the two segments I focus on, right, is that segment before retirement and the segment after retirement. And that becomes the retirement kind of is the center peak of the mountain. And that becomes the focus, is that when we're working, we focus on the top of the mountain. Like, I want to get to retirement. I can't wait to get to retirement, right? Then when we get there, then we have to figure out what we're going to do and how we're going to come off of that mountain, because more people die coming down the mountain than going up the mountain. Folks that are working and they have an advisor, that's great. Those folks are a lot of those guys out there are good and great at getting you to retirement. But it's a whole different strategy. It's a different philosophy. It's a different mentality when you get 5 years out from retirement. What are we going to do? How are we going to switch gears going into retirement? How do we prepare? What changes do we make when it comes to the risk in our portfolio? How do we create the income that's going to provide for that paycheck that we're not going to get anymore? It's a different process than the folks out there when they're working.
Right.
And so that's why it's important that when you get 5 to 10 years out from retirement, you start talking to folks, advisors, that is their primary focus is retirement income planning, because it's different than when you're working. And that's really and truly a lot of what we do. I'm going to say probably 90% of the folks we work with are working with us because we've put together an income plan for them, and that income plan is what they're living off of today in retirement.
And Philip, when you talk about that mountain analogy and the fact that more people are injured coming back down the mountain, and we just try to visualize what's happening with our retirement money that way, it's one of those things where I have heard you say that so many times on this show, and I know I've told you this before, but I didn't fully understand that analogy. It wasn't real to me until I actually experienced it for myself, going and climbing a mountain with one of my kids. And all day long, we were out in Colorado. This was several years ago. All day long, we'd been told, we're only halfway there when we get to the top. And I heard our guides say that, but I was so focused on the summit. I was so focused on the top, and we got up there and we celebrated. I had to bribe my daughter with a fancy coffee after we got back down because she didn't want to keep going. But I said, no, we got to get up here. We celebrated. We took selfies. We took pictures. We enjoyed the view. We took it all in and just basked in what we had accomplished to get up to the top of that mountain. And then we turned around and looked down, and that's when it really hit me that, yeah, he was right. we have a lot of work to do, and everything changed. And I wonder how many people experience that with retirement, where they hear someone like you talking about this all the time, that, oh, everything's going to change and we have a lot to do. But until they're at the doorstep of retirement, it doesn't fully sink in. Does that happen to people, do you think?
It does. And a lot of times, even after they pull the trigger and they retire, sometimes it still takes a little time for it to really sink in. And unfortunately, that's not a good thing. I tell people, look, there's that what I call the retirement danger zone. And that's the 10 years before you're getting ready to retire and the 10 years after you retire. That 20-year time span is so important. I still remember speaking with a gentleman. He was actually a retired doctor, and when I sat with him, he had this was 09, so we'd gone through the 08 crash, right? And
right.
So I'm sitting there talking with him and looking at his portfolio, and he told me, he said, Phil, back in the first of 2008, I had more than double what I have right now. And because he was taking income out of that portfolio, it had devastated his income. Well, it devastated what was left in his portfolio because of that time period right after he retired that was a down market. So if that happens to you before retirement, you can decide, well, I'm going to work a little longer. But if it happens to you after retirement, what do you do? That's why it's important that you have a plan in place. And that's really what we focus on is kind of, putting together that income plan.
If you have questions about how to get started with putting together that income plan, the number to call to reach Philip Statler is 863-285-3815. Again, that's 863-285-3815 to talk a little bit about what's going on with your income. How can you make sure that you've got enough? How do you make sure that income is secure? That number again, 863-285-3815. Philip, when we talk a little bit about what it is that people need in terms of how much they need for their retirement, I think about someone who might want to travel, and I know some of that might be a little uncertain right now, but there are people who want to maybe invest in a lake home or a vacation home, or there are people who might want to travel and see some different things in the world. And then I think about someone like my mother-in-law who recently retired, and really, for her, being retired just means an escape from other people. Like they have some land. She likes to spend some time out on the land, maintaining it, taking care of it. Really, she doesn't have a cell phone. She doesn't carry anything out there with her. She just enjoys that solitude and enjoys that ability to get out there and take care of things. That's not a very expensive lifestyle, Philip. So talk a little bit about how someone like my mother-in-law, but someone who doesn't need to spend a whole lot, still needs to plan, just like someone who's trying to travel a lot. It's just you have to know those details so you can make it custom for them, right?
Absolutely. We need to know what is their retirement plan. What are they going to do? I mean, that's why it's important that we have that conversation up front. Right? What are you going to do when you retire? What's important to you in retirement, and what's important to you about your money? And how's that going to help you accomplish what you want to do in retirement? Whether you're going to travel the world or, you're just going to find your little seclusion in the world, both cases, we need to understand what that looks like to you, what retirement looks like to you, because maybe you don't need income now, but none of us know from a healthcare perspective what life's going to throw us. And so we may need money down the road that we haven't even thought about. And so there's things like that we need to put into place through our planning process to make sure that we've got everything taken care of. And maybe it's just growing a bigger portfolio to give to your kids and your grandkids, while living off of less income because you're happy, just lack of a better word, like my dad likes to piddle, you piddle out there in the yard, or, you do that type of thing. And so that becomes your retirement. That's what you want to do. That's what you've looked forward to doing all your working career. And so we still need to have a plan in place to make sure you get to do it and do it in the style and the way you want to.
And let's talk a little bit about what this looks like as you're asking these questions. You're helping someone get an idea of not only what do they want to do, but also what are some of the other factors they might consider. Longevity. How likely is it that they might live a long life in retirement? How do we make sure, Philip, the income is going to last if we end up being in retirement for a very long time? It could be 30, 40 years in some cases.
You're so right, Jen. I mean, life expectancies continue to grow. And I sit down with folks, a lot of times they think, I'm not going to live that long. But none of us know that, Jen. We're not promised tomorrow.
Right.
So we need to have both perspectives. We need the perspective, okay, if I'm not in this world, 5 years from now, that's this scenario. But what if I live 30 years? I'm 95 years old. Man, would it be terrible to be 95 years old and have nothing left of your portfolio to live off of? And that's why it becomes so important that folks actually have a retirement income plan in place. And that's a rarity today. I see financial plans, don't get me wrong, I see big financial plans. Some of them are, 10, 15, 50 pages long. I mean, that's just where they are. You need to address the one thing in retirement, to me, that's most important, and that's income. Where's your income going to come from? How long is it going to last? And is it dependent upon what happens in the stock market? Because if it is, that can be problematic. Folks, give me a call. Let's walk through our process. Let's determine what your risk tolerance is, and let's build something that meets that and is congruent with your risk number. Give me a call at 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815 to get started on your retirement income right now.
Philip Statler is with Statler Financial Services, and I am Jen Rezac alongside. You know that junk drawer in your kitchen? Does it ever remind you of your financial plan? We'll talk about how you can get your plan in order coming up next.
Wait and see. When you can't predict the future, that can be a good strategy. But wait and see isn't always a good strategy when it comes to your retirement. In these uncertain times, the decisions you make today regarding your savings and investments can have a huge impact on your retirement. Philip Statler and the team at Statler Financial have seen the market at its highs, its lows, and everywhere in between. They know how emotional it can be for you right now. So here's what they're doing. They're clearing their schedule to talk with you on the phone or on a video call to listen to what concerns you have and then offer help. The number to call is 863-285-3815. They are local and independent advisors who can help guide you through this. Call Philip Statler and the Statler Financial team now. 863-285-3815 and schedule your time for a phone or a video meeting with the team. Call 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. Investment advisory services offered through Statler Financial Services, Inc. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Thanks for joining us today. This is the Statler Financial Radio Show. I am Jen Rezac, happy to be here with Philip Statler. He's president and CEO of Statler Financial Services. Philip is the inaugural Highlander Award winner for Financial Representative of the Year. You can check him out online at statlerfinancial.com. He's also always posting stuff on Facebook, videos, and other updates. So just search for Statler Financial Services if you're on there, and they'll pop right up. Talking today about putting together a 5-star retirement plan, and calling them stars because we can all relate to a 5-star restaurant or a 5-star hotel. We kind of know what that means. When we talk about a retirement plan, the 5 stars are really the key components, the pieces that you need to have for a comprehensive retirement plan: an income plan, a wealth management strategy, a tax strategy, healthcare long-term care plan, and also an estate and legacy plan. Let's talk a little bit about that tax planning piece of this because, Philip, it's something that feels like it's out of our control. Whatever happens with our taxes, we just have to suck it up and pay those taxes. But there are some things we can do to have a little bit more control here, right?
There are. We do have the ability to take money out of retirement plans, do that type of stuff. I mean, it is one of those things that we have some control over. It does take some planning. We have to look ahead. Sometimes it means we need to pay some tax today instead of waiting until later. Because let's face it, we don't know what tax rates are going to be down the road. And my belief right now is that we are in the lowest tax brackets you and I are ever going to see. And
right.
Down the road, taxes are going to go up. None of us, Jen, like to or want to pay taxes. But if I can save money by paying taxes today instead of later, why wouldn't I do that? Mm-hmm. If taxes are on sale, I mean, my wife always tells me, hey, I saved you money because I bought this on sale.
She went to
Right?
Kohl's and got that Kohl's cash back.
So, I mean, the same thing works in taxes. The only thing is it's painful to have to write that check. And so you don't feel like you're getting any value for it, right? You're just writing the check. So, but it is, sometimes you need to run those numbers to determine what that looks like for you.
Yeah, just an important thing to think about. And I love the idea of thinking it as taxes being on sale, because that's certainly something we can relate to. And why do we want to get things on sale? Because then we have more to spend on the things that we want to, the way we want to. And that's really the goal when we talk about being tax efficient and tax planning, Philip. It's recognizing that I have $500,000 in my 401k. It doesn't mean I have $500,000 to spend, but then we make some adjustments and we can then hopefully spend more of that the way we want to, instead of it too much of it going to taxes, right?
Yeah, I'll give you a couple examples.
Okay.
I mean, just recently, right? I sat down with some clients of mine. We were doing some reviews. They didn't file a tax return last year because they didn't have enough income.
Okay.
And so, but yet they have IRAs over here.
Yeah.
And so they are not using their standard deduction to its maximum capacity. And so we sat down and they got this little $15,000 IRA over here. And so we said, okay, look, let's take that out. Let's move it into your joint account. You're not going to have to pay taxes because you're still going to be under the standard deduction. So let's do that. Let's don't waste that standard deduction. So we did it right there. We filled out the paperwork. We're moving that money over out of the IRA into their joint account. It'll be taxable, but they won't pay a dime of tax on it. I had another client that a relatively new client, but the one thing I said to them is they had way too much money in safety, nothing in risk. Number one. Number two, they were in a 0% tax bracket and they weren't taking any money out of their IRAs to max that out. And so we started working on a plan for them to move money out of their IRA into their joint account to get it balanced out where they won't have to pay much in the way of taxes down the road. So it is one of those things that you have to take a look at. You have to be proactive. You need to be working with an advisor who understands taxes. That happens to be my background, right? I've done taxes since I'm getting up there. I in my 50s now, so I get a little forgetful. But it's like, okay, I got out of college in 1984. And so basically I've been doing taxes since 1984. And so I can help you navigate what that looks like and what the best options are for you when it comes to taxes. So, it's just one of those things, Jen, that we need to make sure that we're being cognizant of the tax impact on our retirement dollars.
Talking today with Philip Statler. He is with Statler Financial Services. I just want to give out the phone number if you would like to learn a little bit more about some of those options for being tax efficient in retirement, getting that analysis to see what are some of the changes you might consider making as it relates to becoming more tax efficient with your income in retirement. 863-285-3815 is the number you can call to get started today. That's 863-285-3815. One more time, 863-285-3815 to reach Philip Statler and the team at Statler Financial Services. Here's something else, Philip, that we want to be protecting our income from, and it's certainly one of those key components of our 5-star plan, healthcare costs. And here's why it's a big deal. Fidelity says the average 65-year-old couple can expect to pay an estimated $285,000 for health care and retirement. That doesn't even count long-term care costs. So are people even aware of how steep those costs are going to be? And how do you help them get ready for this?
That's a big number. And sometimes I wonder, how do they really get to that? Which is poking holes in the system. But I understand healthcare costs, don't get me wrong, it's going to be a big number, especially if you're 65 and you retire and you're like my grandmother, you live to be 100. Well, That's a long time to be retired. So, I'm sure that their number takes into account inflation, healthcare inflation, that type of stuff. So what do? Well, number one, you have to build in some inflation stops into your income plan to make sure that it helps keep pace with those healthcare numbers. Because for most people, Jen, that number is their Medicare Part B premium that they're paying out of their Social Security and their Medicare supplement. Mm-hmm. Because if you have those two things and you got the right Medicare supplement, you don't have much else in the way of medical expenses. Now, prescriptions, you still have some prescription costs, which can be astronomical. Don't get me wrong. It's got to be the cost of those things increasing, which is inflationary. So that's why we have to build a plan that has some inflation built into it. And then that's the other reason that we want to make sure we're using some portion of our portfolio in the stock market, because that's going to help defray or offset some of those costs as they increase as we continue to live a longer life.
It's just one of those things that we don't want to overlook, and then we have to think about the long-term care costs as well. And Philip, just talk about some of the conversations that you have with people who are trying to navigate those long-term care decisions. And I think those will continue to change as we continue to see fallout from the pandemic. I think that's going to have an impact on people's decisions with long-term care as well.
I think you're right, Jen. And so here's some things that people need to consider about long-term care. It's out there, right? Some people are going to end up in long-term care. Now, whether that means a nursing home, which it doesn't always mean a nursing home, sometimes it means an assisted living facility. And there's two totally different costs associated with it, right? A nursing home is almost 3 times as much as assisted living. So there's some things there that we need to consider. There's long-term care insurance. Number one, can you get it? Are you healthy enough to get it now? And what's the cost? And those are things you have to weigh. There is life insurance that has some living benefits so that you're not throwing your money away like car insurance, right? You're actually going to get something, or somebody's going to get something, right? So through life insurance, it has some long-term care riders, and they cost money. Don't get me wrong. You have to pay for some of that stuff inside of there. If you don't use it, then your beneficiaries are going to get access to it, that death benefit. So there are some things there to look at. The other is just doing some long-term care, Medicaid planning. And I can speak from experience, right? We've had to walk through that process 3 times in 3 different situations ourselves with family members. Right. So I understand that process. I know how to assemble the right team to help my clients walk through that process of making sure that they are comfortable with the long-term care planning, and to make sure that they're on the right track, because I've done it 3 times. So I understand that process. And it's not difficult, but you need to have the right team in place that can walk you through that.
And the last piece that I want to make sure we spend a little bit of time on is the estate and legacy planning piece as well, because as important as it is, Philip, to make sure that we've got ourselves set up for income as long as we need it, and we think about healthcare and long-term care, there's also the issue of what we're going to potentially leave behind, or making sure that those end-of-life type of decisions are thought about as well. Can you talk about how you handle this with your team?
Absolutely. Obviously, I'm not an attorney. I don't even play an attorney on TV, Jen. So, but it's just the way it is. However, because of my accounting and tax background, I have been dealing with estate planning for almost ever, right? So it's something I'm very familiar with. I know what kind of things need to be in the documents that you're looking at. I know when a trust is needed, when it's not really needed. So there's things like that we can help walk our clients through, and then pointing them in the right direction, right? So here's our team of folks that, if we need to address our estate plan, if it hasn't been looked at in 5-10 years, well, we need to look at it. We need to sit down with an attorney, and you need to look at it to make sure that it's going to do what you want it to do, because the one thing you don't want is an estate plan that doesn't work the way you want it to work. People too often set it and forget it, and it needs to be looked at periodically, especially things like power of attorneys, healthcare directives. Those are all important things that need to be addressed. Folks, listen, I'm not just a financial guy, right? My background is so important for our clients. We're here to coach you into and through retirement. I want to be your retirement coach. I want to help you get ready for retirement, and then I want to help you retire and stay retired the rest of your life. That's what we do here at Statler Financial. Let's sit down and let's see how we can make sure that you're ready for the retirement ball game. Give me a call right now at 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815.
This is the Statler Financial Radio Show. We'll be back.
Wait and see. When you can't predict the future, that can be a good strategy. But wait and see isn't always a good strategy when it comes to your retirement. In these uncertain times, the decisions you make today regarding your savings and investments can have a huge impact on your retirement. Philip Statler and the team at Statler Financial have seen the market at its highs, its lows, and everywhere in between. They know how emotional it can be for you right now. So here's what they're doing. They're clearing their schedule to talk with you on the phone or on a video call to listen to what concerns you have and then offer help. The number to call is 863-285-3815. They are local and independent advisors who can help guide you through this. Call Philip Statler and the Statler Financial team now. 863-285-3815 and schedule your time for a phone or a video meeting with the team. Call 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. Investment advisory services offered through Statler Financial Services, Inc. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Thanks for joining us today. This is the Statler Financial Radio Show. I am Jen Rezac, happy to be here with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services. And Philip gets questions each and every week about all things retirement. And the good news is he loves answering your questions. So we'll go ahead and open up our Statler Financial mailbag and go over some of those common retirement questions. And I should point out the way you can send in your questions. Send it to this email address, team@sfsretirement.com. That stands for Statler Financial Services, team@sfsretirement.com. And Philip, our first question today comes from Chuck. Chuck's a little bit worried about what's going on with the markets this year and does not want to take any more big losses. The big question, how long should I be in cash before I try to get back into the markets?
Chuck, that's a big problem because you came out, right?
Yep.
And so now you try to figure out when to go back in. And so here's the long answer for that question is you need to have the right allocation between, as I preach always, between risk and safety. If you had that allocation done properly at the beginning, then you would know what your risk bucket looks like. And as long as that risk bucket was properly allocated, then you wouldn't need to be doing anything, because the problem of trying to get back in the market, trying to time that, most people don't have very good luck. Let's put it that way. Because what happens is, when do we want to get in? When we get that fear of missing out, the returns keep going up and up and up and up. And so what do? We jump in at the top and we got out at the bottom. Mm-hmm. And so we lose money. So the first thing is, don't do that. Don't let that happen to you. Make sure you've got the right allocation between safety and risk, and then make sure your risk portfolio is allocated properly for your risk tolerance. And that way you shouldn't be moving in and out of the market. You should be tweaking that portfolio, but remaining in the market. You wouldn't have a big cash balance there to work with.
Thank you, Chuck, for sending in that question. Our next one comes from Pam, and Pam has worked at a hospital for almost 18 years, a hospital in this area for almost 18 years. She doesn't say which one. Pam was planning to work there for a full 20 years before retiring, but the things this year have taken a toll on her, and now she's thinking about retiring earlier than she had planned. Here's the big question from Pam. Before I give them my notice, how do I make sure that I am ready to retire?
Pam, I would say that one thing I would consider is we need to sit down with somebody. You need to sit down with somebody to determine where you are, what needs to happen, all the things that we just talked about. You need a better understanding of timing. And so, hey, we'd love to sit down with you and discuss that and figure out if we can be a good fit for you. All you have to do is give us a call at 863-285-3815. I think you need an income plan in place. You need to know your risk number, and you need to have all the pieces of the puzzle put together. And we can help you do that. I said, that's what we've done for 20 years is help people put together their retirement income plans. So give us a call right now at 863-285-3815.
Talking today with Philip Statler. He is with Statler Financial Services. We have opened up our Statler Financial Radio Show mailbag, and you can send in your questions to the email address team@sfsretirement.com. That stands for Statler Financial Services. team@sfsretirement.com. And our next question, Philip, comes from Kevin. Kevin says they were not planning to retire for several more years, but they've had some health issues come up. Now his wife isn't healthy enough to work, and he thinks he needs to stop working to help take care of her. So similar to Pam's question in that he just wants to know what they need to do before they decide for sure. So this is a little bit different because not only, Pam was planning on just getting done working, Kevin's thinking about that as well, but with some health issues involved also. So what do they need to do here to make sure that they'll be okay?
Well, I think they need to, obviously they need an income plan, right? We need to make sure we have the income design. But the other thing is that long-term care may be an issue for them. And so looking at their options from that standpoint to see, I'm not sure exactly what kind of health issues his wife has, but that's definitely an area that they need to ask the right questions to get the answers to determine if that's an area that maybe they need to look at. But they definitely need an income plan. They need to know before they retire that they're going to have enough money coming in to get them through retirement. And sometimes that can be tough given that somebody's got health issues, right? Because it depends on how bad those health issues are, determines added expense or shorter life expectancy, those things we don't like to talk about, but still they're a reality that need to be taken into consideration as we prepare for retirement.
All right. Thank you for sending in that question. Just a lot of things to make sure that we're taking care of. And that's really what the whole planning process can help you do. I know Philip gave the phone number a few moments ago, but I think it's a good opportunity to go ahead and give it again. 863-285-3815. Again, to get started on that financial x-ray report process to make sure you understand what all's going on with your money. What are some of the options to make sure it'll last? How do you make sure that you're ready for some of these scenarios like long-term care, health care costs in retirement, taxes, inflation? A lot of things are addressed by that financial x-ray report. 863-285-3815. Again, that's 863-285-3815. And as we take a look at what's going on with our money, another one of the issues that you help people address, Philip, is Social Security. And that's actually our next question comes from Hal. And he just wants to know if he has to wait until 70 to take Social Security.
Oh, heavens, no, Hal. You don't have to wait till 70. You can take it at any time up from 62 to 70. The problem is you don't want to wait until after 70 because you don't get anything extra for waiting longer than 70. The thing is how do folks know when to take Social Security? And sometimes that can be difficult, Jen. We need to have the tools in place, which we do. We have the different worksheets and different programs that help us analyze when is the best time for folks to take Social Security. Because, like I said, you could take Social Security at 62, and there is a small segment of folks, Jen, that can actually take it at 60. And that would be widows and widowers have an option there, depending on their circumstances, where they might could take it at 60. But for most of us, it's 62 to 70 is that window. And so when do you take it? That is the $1 million question a lot of times. And so it's an opportunity for some planning and to make sure that you're taking it at the most advantageous time for you. And one of the things that we look at is longevity, right? How long have you lived? Because the longer you wait to take your Social Security, the bigger the Social Security check's going to be for you. What a lot of people don't consider, Jen, is the impact that taking Social Security early will have on your spouse. And let's face it, usually that's going to be the wife, right? Because us guys, we tend to die first. And so people don't take that into consideration. And I think that has to be more and more, we have to be prudent when we do this Social Security planning. We can't be in the now moment of, well, I want money now. We need to make that decision based on what's best over the whole long term, not just right now. And so sometimes that means we have to take money out of our IRAs or savings and wait a couple of years before we take Social Security. But that's part of our process is when people are concerned about that, we've got the ability to run them through the different scenarios to determine what that looks like for them. When is the best time to take Social Security based on their circumstances, right? Is always based on the client's circumstances, because that's all that matters when they're sitting in front of you,
right?
Is what's best for them, what's prudent for them. Because sometimes what they want and what they need and what's prudent are all different things. And so that's why we're glad that we have the tools we need to be able to help folks make the decisions that need to be made. And all that works together with our financial x-ray and our income planning. Again, income planning is so important as you start to look at retirement. The financial x-ray lets you know where you are and if that really and truly is where you need to be. Like I said earlier, most of the time when we sit down with folks, they have a riskier portfolio than they thought they did. Now's the time. The market's back up. Hopefully your accounts have gone back up. They've buoyed with the water. And so now's the time to get that financial x-ray so that you can determine if you're where you need to be. And if not, what changes make sense for you. Give me a call and let's walk you through our financial x-ray. 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. Folks, don't put it off. There's no time like today to get started. And I want you to be prepared for your retirement, so it's the retirement you always dreamed of. Give me a call right now to schedule your financial x-ray. 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815.
Information provided during the Statler Financial Radio Show is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute investment, tax, or legal advice. Information has been obtained from sources that are deemed to be reliable, but their accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed. Always consult with a qualified investment, legal, or tax professional before taking any action. Annuity guarantees are based solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing company. Individuals should thoroughly review the contract for specific details of the product features and costs. Income payments and withdrawals from deferred annuities are generally taxable as ordinary income in the year they are taken. All investing involves risk, including the potential loss